Hey everybody, good day to y'all. It's Carpo here. I'm going to kind of go off the beaten path today. I want to talk about something called tort reform. Tort reform. It's one of those things that most people aren't aware of, but frivolous lawsuits that have been, held up over the years by the courts have created kind of this fervor among politicians, and I guess politicians have been buying into the whole idea for a long time of including, putting caps on lawsuits as part of their agenda to get elected. And what this does is it incorporates into their election campaign a guaranteed win or a guaranteed backing by the big companies. Naturally, a person who's getting backed by big companies is going to have to pay back. They can do that through tort reform and through caps on lawsuits. And I've thought about this a lot, about whether a person should be able to sue for millions of dollars a company just because of something small that happened to them. That's kind of a touchy issue, There's greed, but then there's, like if a person, let's say, the example I wanted to use was the lady that burned her lab with coffee. The McDonald's lawsuit, and that's the one that kind of set off this whole thing. And I'm sure everybody's heard of that. An old lady's in the parking lot at McDonald's, and she's got her coffee between her legs, it spills, and she burns herself really bad. And the lawsuit ended up being $2 million in the beginning, or $2.5 million. So what happens is people just hear a lady burned herself with coffee, and she sued for $2 million. It was not like that at all. You can look at the details yourself, but they tried to get McDonald's to pay just the hospital bills, which were like 10 grand. They only offered $800. The coffee was like 190 degrees or something, way over temperature, way overheated. If you look at you can see the pictures for yourself. It burned the inside of her thighs. She was an old lady, and she burned, and like third degree burns or first degree, whatever, the worst ones, just horrible. She had to have skin grafts, all kinds of stuff. The originally was only going to be 160 grand, and in the end they settled for 400 grand or something. But the $2.5 million lawsuit, they said that's just like 2 days of coffee sales for McDonald's. And so you think about it. You think about the punishment. Does it fit the crime? If a person sues a company for 100 grand, yay, that may be great for the person, but that's not very much money. If a person sues for, say, 10 million, that sounds like a frivolous lawsuit. But if the punishment fits the crime and the company is that big, they need to pay up. McDonald's had 700 previous complaints of the same thing, and there's a little documentary you can watch about it. It's pretty interesting. That's where I got the inspiration. It was called Hot Coffee, I think, and there was another one on there where they talked about a phone booth where a person got hit by a car. He sued the phone company, and everybody said that was a frivolous lawsuit and used that as an excuse to put more caps on lawsuits. It turns out that same phone booth was on a busy intersection in LA. It had been hit by multiple cars multiple times, and it hadn't been repaired correctly. And a drunk driver hit it, and the guy was in it. Well, he saw the car coming, he tried to get out, but the door was broken, and it wouldn't open because they hadn't fixed it correctly. So what I'm saying is that I can use this, go on about this for days, but there are a lot of factors to every situation to consider. You can't just say that's a frivolous lawsuit. You have to understand why. So the person gets hit by a drunk driver, and they sue the city. First thought on a person's mind is, oh, they're just trying to get more money. No, they're suing the right person, and in that situation. And I guess I could use this moment to extend that same metaphor for everything. Use that metaphor for everything. You don't quite understand what's going on in the real world. We don't understand what's going on in people's heads, and we don't understand the reasons behind a lot of the things that happen. Say a person acts out. And I'm glad that I remembered this, because this is kind of this is something I wanted to tackle in a separate video, but I'm just going to put it in this one. I've been thinking a lot about entitled people. I made a video a while back about people who seem entitled, the ones who haul ass down on the freeway, the ones who zip in and out of traffic, or the guy who thinks he's more important in line, or is rude and talks on his cell phone, in a restaurant really loud, or whatever the situation may be. Now, there are situations where a person's just plain rude. But let's take a minute to consider the people who aren't necessarily... Let's take the guy who's cutting in and out of traffic, because I always try to think about this. Now, if it's a little sports car, say it's a little Honda with teenagers in it, hauling ass, yeah, they're rude. But they're young. They haven't quite learned yet. So you got to take that into consideration. Well, let's say it's just a regular sedan with a couple in it or something. You might think, oh, what an asshole, Or let's say they have their family in there. The guy who's cruising around with the kid in the back. And you're like, dude, what a fucked up deal. Maybe his kid's arm's broken. Maybe he's bleeding out. Maybe he's on his way to the hospital. Or, that would be one of the only legitimate excuses for cutting in and out, I guess, with your kid in the car. But maybe that's the case, is what I'm saying. And there could be that one situation where you don't quite know why a person's being the way they are. And you might meet someone on a day when they're in a bad mood or a bad way. And you have that impression of them, that first impression that they're a certain way. And it's not always correct. So when we meet people in our daily life, we don't know why they do the things they do, and we can't point the finger at one another and say, you're doing this because of this. And the big guys, as far as the lawsuits, the frivolous lawsuits go, the corporations, the reason why they use the politicians for that is obvious, but the corporations can put caps on lawsuits, and it allows them to move further, forward with making shitty products. And this is exactly what's happened with Monsanto. Monsanto has seen the potential for lawsuits coming, so they've nipped it in the bud and passed the Monsanto Protection Act. Secretly, through another bill. Most people say, Obama signed the Monsanto Protection Act. He's just a horrible person. I'm not going to say some of the shit people say, but yeah, Obama signed the bill. But that's what I'm saying. It's another one of those situations where there's more details than most people know. He didn't just sign the Monsanto Protection Act. That was a small inclusion in a monstrous bill legislated about, food and business. And God, they cram so much shit into those bills. No, the politicians don't have time to read. If a president were to read every bill, he'd never be able to do anything. There's no way. So the president hopes that the legislatures, that the people creating the laws are actually doing it correctly, and they sign the bill in good faith that people in the cabinet and within the administration are doing the right thing. So it's always a big picture than people see, and it's just the way the world is. Can't always see why people do the things they do, but I guess why it bothers me so much is the fact that I see people all the time accusing people of being a certain way. Let's say YouTube, for example. YouTube's a great example. Somebody made a comment the other day on a video about global warming and said something to the effect of, well, there's a lot of speculation on global warming and whether or not it's man-made or this or that, but, I can't say 100% that it is man-made, but we need to at least start doing something about it. Something to that effect. And another person says, they said, oh, get over yourself, you just want an excuse to drive your big ass SUV, you asshole. And the original comment came from, just some girl. And I was like, dude, that's harsh. I was like, you don't know if this person drives an SUV. You don't know if this person's maybe a complete vegan, hippie, living off the land kind of person that just has common sense, or maybe has done more homework than you. And there's a lot of that. Like, if you make a certain statement to people, they'll just jump all over you because they assume you're a certain way. And that's stereotyping. That's judgment. It's judgmental, and we all do it to an extent, but you got to control yourself. You You can't just judge people based on one comment they make, or, you know, and that's another thing, is like, you don't know if a person's having a bad day. Just like the guy that's driving on the freeway. You know, once in a while, a good example is I watched a video the other day about that dog that got shot, and I'm sure most people have heard about that by now. It went viral, but you know, it's horrid to watch. And my wife found it, and I was like, I don't watch that shit. I stay away from all the bad news. But she's like, you got to see, this is so sad. So I watched it, and you know, it's these cops that shoot this dog. The guy puts the dog in the car. You can watch the video yourself, but it made me so upset that I commented on the video, and I was like, you know, I was cussing it like twice in like one line. I was like, I was mad, you know, I was angry. I felt anger inside me welling up, and I said things that I ordinarily wouldn't say. And I realized afterward that, you know, although the person with the video said, yeah, I was just in what I said, I still felt, you know, like, grr, that's I knew that it was coming from within me, the anger welling up from what I'd seen. And I realized that the mind is out of control often. You're not in control of your emotions and what you say. So if you have a really heated conversation with someone on YouTube, or anywhere, online or in life, just remember that don't let it get too heated, because each person's going to have something to contribute, and you're never going to agree 100% on everything. That's just how it is. But at least if a person makes a comment that you find rude or offensive or angry or hostile, and you're in a peaceful mood, you know, just realize that that person might be a peaceful person too, just in one of their moods. It can go both ways, you know. Sometimes I'm in a kind of a hostile mood, and I pick at people that are overly passive, you know, and we go through these phases and these cycles of rebirth within our own minds, like these sunrises and sunsets of ideas and ways of being. Like, I don't know. A few months ago, I was really into like Hinduism, Buddhism, and you know, I was really forgiving. I wasn't, you know, getting into the religions themselves, but just the ideas behind them and some of the principles behind, you know, that philosophy of everything is one, reincarnation, live and let live, we're all part of the same. And now I have that to carry with me for the rest of my life, but at the same time, I don't let it override my judgments in like dealing with day-to-day situations. You know, like, know when to get intense, know when not to, and that all comes back to the whole lawsuit thing. If the money is going to go to someone, it might as well go to the people that suffered, and nobody can really make a judgment on what's a good amount for a person's pain and suffering. Some people endure better than others, but putting caps on lawsuits just closes the loop, and it doesn't allow us to, they fool us into thinking that it's okay because it's helping us, because they say, well, when somebody has a lawsuit, frivolous lawsuit, it hurts you, the consumer. And that's where they get you, because it doesn't hurt the consumer, it hurts the businesses that are hurting the consumer. Often is the case that it is a frivolous lawsuit, but more often, 99% of the time, the cases are legitimate. That go to trial, the ones that actually pull through, because people don't waste their time with frivolous lawsuits very often. Most people, unless they're really good at what they do and they have a good lawyer and they pay them a lot of money, that's like an investment. Those are the people who use money to make money. But the average Joe who has nothing can't just go and sue Monsanto or the government or the city for something unless they have a good lawyer and a good case, or at least a good case, because if you don't have a good lawyer, you have to have a good case. But you know, ultimately it's in the lawyer's hands too, and the lawyer is responsible for taking on cases that are legitimate. And lawyers have a dirty reputation, and you know, it's up to us to change that, because our kids will be the lawyers one day. And there are a lot of good lawyers out there who don't take shitty cases. They're like, look, I don't work with people who I know are criminals and who are lying. Congratulations to those people. You know, those are good values, morals. And the same with judges, You know, honestly, there's nothing more disgusting to me in society of all the politicians and all the crooks and all the bad shit that goes on in society, even the bankers. See, the bankers are making tons of money off of people, but ultimately it's off of people's greed and ignorance in a lot of cases. But let's just take the judge, for example. The judge who is bought off, the judge who is paid off to win a case. Shameful motherfucker. That guy is the epitome of evil, of hatred, of disgust. And in their mind, they say, well, I gotta take care of my own. Or whatever they're thinking, whatever their justifications. Totally irrational, because these judges, aren't even elected. They're just disgusting, like, oh God, I don't even want to go into it. It pisses me off. A judge is the person who should uphold the morals to the highest extent available. So, anyway, just some grains of sand for thought to build a beach upon. To realize that some of these lawsuits aren't always what they appear, and usually if you're hearing something through the news in a certain way, then it's usually blown out of proportion. So, namaste. Sue some motherfuckers. No, I'm kidding.